Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into one of the most baffling, frankly exhausting paradoxes of modern life. It's a question you or someone you know is probably asking right now. Why do two incomes still feel so entirely broke? I mean, we've all been sold the story, right? The idea that two incomes are inherently better than one, that working twice as hard guarantees financial security. But for millions of couples out there, the math is just absolutely not adding up.
Picture this, because I bet it sounds deeply relatable. Imagine a couple. Let's say she's in marketing, he's in IT. Combined, they're pulling in $133,000 a year. Statistically speaking, that places them right in the top 25% of American households. On paper, they should be absolutely crushing it, maxing out retirement accounts, taking those amazing beach vacations, and just feeling this deep sense of financial peace. But the reality? They're completely exhausted, they barely see each other during the week, they're incredibly stressed out, and they're living dangerously close to paycheck to paycheck. And this dynamic, it goes right to the heart of the anxiety so many of us are feeling. Because this couple, they did everything right. They got the degrees, they secured the good careers, they merged their finances, they bought the house in the decent school district, they played perfectly by the rules. Yet, when the car needed an unexpected repair last month, no cash. They had to slap it on a credit card. It's just massive financial fragility, despite a six-figure income. Section 1. The modern income illusion.
Okay, so we really have to deconstruct this myth that basic addition just magically applies to household salaries. The assumption seems like a no-brainer. If one person making $50,000 can support a family, then hey, two people making $50,000 each should easily support that same family and have a massive 50 grand left over for wealth building, right? Well, no, that's actually not what happened at all. It's kind of one of the biggest financial bait and switches in modern history. The actual term for this was coined way back in 2003 by Elizabeth Warren. This was long before she was a senator, back when she was a Harvard bankruptcy law professor. She and her daughter, Amelia Warren Takiagi, dug into the data of over 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy.
And the conclusion of that massive study was genuinely shocking. Get this. Families with two working parents were actually more likely to file for bankruptcy than single-income families. Just let that sink in for a second. Working twice as hard, bringing home two paychecks, doing literally everything you were told to do, it actually increased financial vulnerability. The absolute most crucial takeaway here is that this isn't some personal finance failure. It's a systemic trap.
Section 2, the two-income trap. To really understand how we all walked right into this trap, we need to hop in a time machine back to 1970. We have to see how the economic baseline of the middle class completely fundamentally shifted. Back in 1970, the typical middle-class family had one primary breadwinner and one parent managing the household. And guess what? That single income was actually enough. They could afford a home, a car, basic healthcare, and still have money left over. They had financial margin. But here's the real kicker. They had an unactivated backup plan. If the primary earner lost their job or got sick, the stay-at-home parent could jump into the workforce. It was literally a built-in emergency insurance policy. Fast forward to today, the dual-income household is the norm. We've taken that emergency backup plan and we've made it our default operating mode.
Now you might be thinking, but wait, we're making way more money today. And yes, adjusted for inflation, the median household income is higher now. But fixed costs just exploded to consume absolutely all of that extra income. Think about it. Median home prices in 1970, adjusted for inflation, were around $200,000. Today, they are over $400,000. Housing essentially doubled. Healthcare spending per household is up over 600%. And childcare, that barely even existed as an expense in 1970, and now it averages over $11,000 per child annually. The fixed costs of just being middle class basically expanded like a balloon to eat that entire second paycheck. Section 3, the math of working twice.
If you're sitting there thinking, well, we're smart with our money, this surely doesn't apply to us, let me walk you through a pretty brutal step-by-step subtraction of a hypothetical household making $120,000. Let's find out where the money actually goes. Say partner A makes $70,000 and partner B makes $50,000. We're going to zero in on partner B's $50,000 second income. Right off the bat, because of progressive tax brackets, that second income gets taxed at a higher marginal rate since it's stacked right on top of the first $70K. When you factor in federal, state, and payroll taxes, you are immediately losing a massive chunk. Boom. That $50K instantly becomes roughly $32,000 in actual take-home pay.
Okay, now, if you have kids, nobody is home to watch them. The average cost of daycare in America is about $15,000 a year for just one child.
And honestly, if you're in a high-cost area, that number could easily be double. But let's just stick with the average. We subtract that $15,000 from our remaining $32,000, bringing the real value of that second income down to $17,000. And guys, you haven't even left the house for work yet. Because 2 working parents means 2 commutes. The average American commute costs about $5,000 a year. That's gas, maintenance, vehicle depreciation. Add in downtown parking, or maybe the absolute necessity of a second car payment and insurance that you wouldn't otherwise need, and you're looking at around $8,000 in commuting costs. We deduct that, and suddenly that shiny $50,000 salary is sitting at a mere $9,000. And finally, we have to talk about the hidden cost, exhaustion. 2 parents working 10-hour days, including commutes, they have absolutely zero energy to cook or clean. Studies actually show dual-income families spend drastically more on convenient services, prepared foods, house cleaners, takeout. These exhaustion expenses easily add another $7,000 a year compared to a home with one person managing domestic labor. Subtract that, and we arrive at a jaw-dropping net contribution of just $2,000 per year. Someone is missing family dinners, grinding through rush hour traffic, and netting the household roughly $8 per workday. To put that into perspective, that is literally $1 single dollar per hour of work. Wild, right? Section 4, the middle class bidding war. So, why do we do it? Well, the gross income illusion tricks couples into locking themselves into massive fixed costs based on money they barely even get to keep. This entire dynamic brilliantly and terribly illustrates the systemic arms race we found ourselves in. See, when dual incomes became the norm, families suddenly had twice the purchasing power. And what happened? They used that dual purchasing power to outbid each other for homes, which drove up baseline prices for everybody. Because public schools are funded by property taxes, parents naturally wanted to live in the best districts. So they used those 2 incomes to bid up property prices in good school areas. You might not be paying private school tuition, but you are absolutely paying the tuition equivalent in a massive mortgage. And the really terrifying part, once you sign for that mortgage, you are locked into needing both of those incomes forever. This creates extreme fragility. A 2019 Federal Reserve study showed that nearly 40% of American adults couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or selling something. And listen, a lot of these are dual income households making solid money on paper. They're just operating at 100% capacity with absolutely zero financial reserves. Everything works totally fine until it doesn't, until someone gets sick, gets laid off, or a transmission blows. And then the whole shebang breaks at once. Section 5, the one income foundation. Okay, so how do we actually escape this trap? We need to pivot from this systemic mess to a really empowering, concrete mindset shift to reclaim your financial flexibility. The alternative approach is to structure your life completely differently. Step 1, you structure your non-negotiable fixed costs, like your mortgage and your cars, so they can be covered by one income alone. Yes, this means you drive right past that nicer house you technically qualify for based on both incomes. Step 2, you treat the second income as temporary, even if it isn't. You just flat out refuse to build a lifestyle that relies on it to function. And step 3, you deploy that second income to buy back optionality. Funnel it straight into emergency funds, investments, and debt payoff. Every single dollar invested buys you the flexibility to handle a health crisis, take a career risk, or have one partner step back if they ever need to. So the absolutely crucial point I want to leave you with today is this really provocative question. Are you actually building wealth, or are you just buying the appearance of it? You know, the families who truly thrive aren't always the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who fiercely preserve their flexibility. Somewhere along the line, we traded the resilience of the single income era for bigger houses, nicer cars, and the appearance of prosperity. But cash flow isn't security if it's entirely spoken for before the check even clears. It's time to start rethinking your financial strategy. Protect your margin and refuse to let your expenses consume your life. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this helps you look at your own numbers in a completely new